This is problem 10.10 from Brigham in Houston, Fundamentals of Financial Management, Concise 9th edition. And in this problem, what we have is a firm that is trying to raise enough capital to fund an expansion of $8.2 million. They have a target capital structure of 55% equity, 45% debt, and they got to raise $8.2 million. Now, the first thing they're going to raise with the equity would be retained earnings. See, the retained earnings have a cost of 11%. If they have to issue more common stock, it's going to cost more. It's going to be 12.5%. And anytime that they raise the equity, they're also going to match it with some debt, and they can raise up to $4 million of debt at 9%. And if they need to borrow even more, then they can raise another $5 million. That'd be a grand total of $9 million total. But they could raise $4 million of debt at 9% and another $5 million at 13%. So they don't want to raise more equity and or borrow more money than they need. This 8.2 total, they need $8,200,000, okay, which the amount of that'll be equity would be 55%. So they can raise $4.5 million of equity, and that'll be $4 million of retained earnings, and that won't be enough. They'll also need to raise some additional they'll have to issue $510,000 of common stock to get the grand total. And their total debt would be the rest of it. All right, this is $3,690,000, which would be 45% of the total $8.2 million they need. Well, the good news is they can raise up to $4 million of debt at just 9%. So they're only going to need $3,690,000. This is going to come in two tiers. Tier 1, which is going to be a combination of the $4 million in retained earnings plus some debt. And then in Tier 2, it'll be the $500,000 of new common plus some debt. Okay, so no matter how you slice it, they're going to need to buy a little bit of common. And so the problem's asking you what this Tier 2 cost is. What is the weighted average cost of capital for the last dollar raised? I'll just go ahead and do both tiers in there. If we look at the equity portion for Tier 1, the equity portion would be $4 million, and that's retained earnings, and the cost of that will be 11%. So it's given in the problem that the cost of equity is 11%, and the weight would be 55%. Okay, so they're going to have to raise some debt though, and they're going to have to keep the proportions the same. So the ratio of debt to equity this is 45%, okay? The cost for that debt would be 9%, that's the yield to maturity, times 1 minus their tax rate, so the actual cost is going to be 5.4%. Now I could find out the total number of dollars that of debt simply by taking the weight of the debt divided by the weight of the equity times the equity. That means that in Tier 1, the total will be $7,272,727, and the cost of that would be weight times cost for the equity plus weight times cost for the debt. So the first tier is going to cost around 8.48%, but it's not enough. We still need the Tier 2 amount, which would be 510 million, or 510,000 rather, of new common, which has a cost of 12.5%, and it's still 55% of the mix. We would match that with $417,273, so that the grand total would be $927,273 in that second tier. So the $8.2 million that you raise, Tier 1 at 8.48% would be 7.2, and it cost you 9.31% for the other 927,000. Okay, the grand total of the debt you're going to raise, $3,690,000. The grand total of the equity be $4,510,000. So the answer to this problem, what is the weighted average cost of capital for the last dollar raised to complete the expansion? That'd be 9.31%.